Hey everybody, it's Galmadex, and welcome back to another premiere draft of MTG Foundations. Without further ado, let's just grab our sweet Mythic. I've actually never seen this card before, but she looks quite powerful. Zimone, Paradox Sculptor, 2 a green and a blue for a 1/4 legendary human wizard. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures you control. So you can put a counter on her and another creature. Yeah, she can put counters on herself. And then for 2 mana, a green and a blue, you can tap her and double the number of each kind of counter on up to 2 target creatures and or artifacts. Yeah, that's insane. Wow, so like the turn you play her, you get essentially 3 power and 6 toughness worth of stats. You get a 1/4 and 2 +1/+1 counters. And if she sticks around, that is going to be unbeatable. Yeah. Really strong card, and seems like a great reason to try to just force Simic from the start, as long as it's decently open. Green is quite often open, because green is one of the weaker colors in the set. Blue, it's going to be a little bit more of a coin flip here, so pick 2. Luckily, it looks like there's nothing too powerful off color that will have to go in any other direction, so we can just grab this Wildwood Scourge. Not the greatest card ever, because by itself, just a X mana XX, where you have to spend 1 additional mana, like 4 mana for a 3/3, 5 mana for a 4/4. It's always going to be a little smaller than you want for that mana cost, but with +1/+1 counter synergies, you can make up for that quite a bit, and obviously, if our first pick is Zimone, we have at least one +1/+1 counter synergy for the card. So I'll take that here. Although I honestly wouldn't be surprised if there's just a better argument for taking like a Wary Thespian, just the most efficient of all these creatures. That's always going to be consistently good. But also Gnarlid Colony can do great stuff with Zimone, giving our whole board trample. That's pretty fun too. But I'm going to try to high roll it here and see if we can get a deck where Wildwood Scourge actually does have a ton of potential synergy. All right, pick 3. There's a small enough number of green and blue cards, and they're weak enough that I think we should just take some off-color removal here. Apothecary Stomper, technically fine for a +1/+1 counter deck, but 6 mana is a lot. And Dwynen's Elite, you need to have a lot of elves, which is not the most likely thing in the world. And these blue spells are also just really filler. A little expensive for what they're doing, but we have Fiery Annihilation, 3 mana for 5 damage, plus Exile, and if the thing is equipped, you exile the equipment too. I feel like Fire Annihilation is just a little more efficient than Bake Into a Pie. It's going to kill almost everything that Bake Into a Pie is going to kill, but it's going to make sure they're exiled so there's no graveyard recursion, and it's going to do it for 1 less mana. Bake Into a Pie has other upsides. It can kill things with more than 5 toughness. It can give you a food token, but for the majority of scenarios, I'd rather have Fire Annihilation. Pick 4. Now a Micromancer is a very good blue spell. There are plenty of good instants and sorceries at mana value 1, depending on the colors that we pair with this. If we do manage to go blue-red off of our Fiery Annihilation, that's one of the best colors in the set to go with Micromancer, because you can get Burst Lightning at common, which is 1 mana for 2 damage or 5 mana for 4. So that's a really flexible Micromancer card. Yep, Micromancer's great, and she sticks to blue with our Zimone, so let's grab the Micromancer. Pick 5. All right, Micromancer works with a Bushwhack. That is green's option to go with the Micromancer. So that would be kind of cute here. Alternatively, we have a Big Fin Bouncer, but we already have 2 really good 4-drops if we go blue-green with Micromancer and Zimone, and we don't have room to play like 5 of these. So I don't know about taking a third 4-mana creature this early, when I could just take a Bushwhack that goes well with Micromancer. Yeah, Bushwhack, relatively not the highest pick ever, but when you have something like a Micromancer that specifically really enjoys having a 1-mana instant or sorcery, goes up quite a bit in the pick order. And the other thing about Bushwhack that's nice is it is fixing as well. We can splash in the Fire Annihilation off of it. We go 3-color here. Pick 6 is pretty weak. Tolarian Terror is my favorite of these cards, but I really don't think blue-green is a good color pair for this. It would be pretty strong if we do end up in blue-red with tons of cheap instants and sorceries there. But it's a pretty narrow, pretty specific card you should not be putting into every deck. Inspiring Call as well. Very, very, very narrow. But technically, if we live in Magical Christmas Land and we get Zimone on board and have this in hand afterward, that would be the dream scenario. This is probably a bad decision, but I'm going to take Inspiring Call because it's just kind of hilarious in the exact right spot. Pick 7. Just going to grab a time stop here. 6 mana, again, is a whole lot. But this is like a counterspell that also makes your opponent skip their combat, or a fog that makes it so your opponent can't cast anything main phase 2, or just a time walk if you cast this during your opponent's untapped step. 6 mana is a lot. That is a huge downside that makes this not actually like an insane card or anything, but it's a pretty fun, decently powerful card, so I'll play around with it here. Pick 8, quite an easy Thornwood Falls. Campus Guide is very bad fixing. Having to shove another land on top of your deck to fix your mana is always rough, or usually rough, and the 2/1 body is really bad. Don't like Swiftfoot Boots or Adventuring Gear. Equipment have to be very strong to be worth running in draft. Here we've got a Refute, or if we want to kind of force our way into blue-red spells, Hidetsugu's Second Right is a really funny card I want to try to kill somebody with at least one time by the time this format is over, so that would be an option, but I think it's just Refute here pretty easily. Now a Dwynen's Elite, if we manage to get a bunch of Llanowar Elves and Dwynen's Elites, that'll be good. So if we see them wheel around here, that's where they get better. The more the merrier with that card. And Lightshell Duo's not bad. The only issue with it is 4 mana. Got a lot of that already. Ooh. Pack 2, pick one. We have Tachiova or we have Genesis Wave. Currently we have no ramp towards Genesis Wave, and this card isn't really worth it. You're not really excited about this until you've spent at least 7 mana on it. Then you're flipping the top 4 and getting all of the permanents that cost 4 or less. You really need to be spending like 8 or more mana. It's just so much mana. I feel like Tachiova is just more consistently good. Cast her for 5, and then every land you play for the rest of the game is going to draw you a card and gain a life. She's quite a bit weaker than she was in Dominaria originally, so if you're a Magic boomer like me, and you drafted Dominaria a lot, you can find yourself in positions where you are overdrafting Tachiova. She's not actually insane in this format, she's just a decent value engine, but she's still decent, and there's really nothing much better here, except maybe Genesis Wave if we get a ton of ramp, but with 0 ramp yet, I'm just going to go Tachiova. Pack 2, pick 2. Overrun is another card that Magic boomers can overrate because of how good it was back in old core set formats like M10 and stuff. Just curve out with some cheap creatures in Overrun. That's still a thing you can do. You can still win like that, but it's, again, one of these cards that's really only good in the right position. You have to already have a pretty solidly sized board and be preferably at least a little bit ahead of your opponent in life total and number of creatures on board to actually fully kill your opponent with this thing. But with 2 Dwynen's Elite, with us wheeling every copy of Dwynen's Elite that we saw, if we can stack up a deck with like 4 or 5 copies of this, it's a really good way to have a million creatures on board to overrun your opponent and get a quick kill on them. So I'm still going to go for it here. It's probably more correct to take something like Evolving Wilds here that's just a lot more flexible, but this draft, I'm kind of just doing the funnest looking stuff, and I'm pretty excited about it. Pick 3, we now have an Archmage of Runes. We don't have a ton of instants and sorceries in the green-blue color pair, but we already have at least like 5 here, and we can definitely draft some more decently highly. So I think Archmage is still a strong enough card to take here pretty early. Every instant source you cast draws you a card. That's just a huge, huge, huge deal, turning them all into 2-for-1 spells, so I'm going to grab it. Pick 4, we now have another Bushwhack for our Micromancer. We also have Brineborn Cutthroat, but I'm really not trying to play a lot of instant speed spells in a green deck. Another Refute, but again, I'm mostly going to be tapping out for creatures, so holding up an instant speed counter is going to be difficult. I think I'm just taking another Bushwhack here. Pick 5. Another Refute. A Burst Lightning off the splash, already maybe splashing for Fiery Annihilation. We have 2 Bushwhacks grabbing us a mountain. We have a Micromancer to grab a Bushwhack to grab a mountain. I think we can grab a Burst Lightning in this deck. Okay. Alright, this guy's an elf for our double Dwynen's Elite. Could have been on a million copies of Refute, but the green-blue color pair is just not a good spot for it. Pick 7. Oh, we can get double Genesis Wave, but have like no ramp in our deck anyway. Definitely supposed to take Snakeskin Veil when I have Micromancer. This is also really good with Zimone. But I can take this Genesis Wave and wheel the other one, pick 9. Ah, when the stars align like that, that's like so cool that I could get double Genesis Wave, but there was no ramp in this pack. There's no Grow from the Ashes, no Llanowar Elves. I just don't think this is the deck for double Genesis Wave, especially because we're also going to be playing a bunch of non-creature spells, which makes it even more awkward. We could just hit those. Wow, this is great for our splash here. There is that 3 mana rock we could take. Oh, we didn't wheel the first Genesis Wave. Okay, we couldn't have had double Genesis Wave anyway. Now I feel less bad. Witness Protection's pretty bad, but 7 mana is also a lot for Meteor Golem. Might be better to take the filler removal, but I've got Burst, Double Bushwhack, Fire Annihilation. I'll take the 7-drop this time. The 2-for-1 removal spell. Wow, wield the Evolving Wilds. Okay, this red splash is genuinely real. So what do we really want out of this final pack? Cheap elves, really? Just cheap creatures to curve into our overrun with. That's kind of all we're missing from the deck. That would help a lot. Well, we don't get cheap creatures. Wow. Somehow a complete miss. I was going to say we don't get cheap creatures because we have to just take Kaito. But we don't get cheap creatures because we just don't get cheap creatures. There's a 6-drop creature and then 3 non-creature spells. I guess we could play a Campus Guide, but this card is garbage, so we're not going to do that. We'll just grab a Kaito and be happy to run a Planeswalker. And worst case scenario out of this draft, we can just pretend we were rare drafting because, oh my god, these rares. There's a lot of rares in this deck. Zimone plus Kaito plus Time Stop. They're all really cool rares to have in the collection. Archmage of Runes. I could take another Snakeskin Veil here. We've got some really good creatures to protect. Zimone, Techova, and Archmage of Runes. So I think this is a good Snakeskin Veil deck. But Arcane Epiphany, if we have a wizard on board, that's a really good deal. I've got 2 wizards in the deck. 4, actually. Because I also have the Erudite Wizard. I guess Lightshell Duo? No, what is this final wizard? I don't know what the last wizard is, but honestly, the Epiphany draw 4 is actually pretty good. I have a lot of Micromancer targets. I don't think I need another. I'll try the Epiphany card draw. Pack 3, pick 3 looks like another Evolving Wilds over a Think Twice or a Refute. Or an Abrade off the splash. Pick 4. Very cute Omniscience, but I'm going to take the Llanowar Elves to go with our double Dwynen's Elite and also curve us up better. Maybe wheel the Dwynen's Elite if we're lucky. Oh, you just wait. Somebody in this draft pod is going to have 2 copies of Genesis Wave, and they're going to Genesis Wave into Omniscience. Genesis Wave for like 13. That'd be hilarious. Still don't think we're Tolarian Terror deck. I could just play this wizard, just some curving out into Overrun more often, plus it's a wizard to make our card draw cheaper. Pick 6. All right, Gnarlid Colony helps us curve into Overrun more often, and give us another 5-drop creature that synergizes well with Zimone's +1/+1 counter nonsense. So it's flexible on the curve. Pick 7. All right, Imprison the Moon, pretty awkward. Well, there's another Burst Lightning. Take another Burst Lightning. I was going to say Imprison the Moon is pretty awkward removal in the early game when your opponent's like really aggressive, but it's great removal late. Once they've already got, 6, 7 lands on board and another land doesn't matter at all, sure, it's basically Banishing Light. The problem is that, like Banishing Light, you can cast that turn 3 against their aggressive 2-drop and be perfectly happy defending yourself with that. But if you Imprison the Moon turn 3 against their 2-drop, all of a sudden they're just casting a 5-drop a turn sooner. Like, giving that mana actually gives them quite a bit of a benefit. Wow, this mana is so good. It's a weird deck. Maybe it's just because I've never played a green deck before. That's actually not true. In the Arena Direct, we cashed out our 2 booster boxes with green-white. But green is my least played color, so I've never done the green-blue thing. Certainly looks unique. I don't think I want the mana. I think I have to cut the overrun as well. I don't think we are slamming down quite as many creatures as you really need for that card. And we have plenty of other ways to win. With Zimone, the Archmage, Time Stop, the... God, just other crazy stuff. Archmage. Alright. 6 cuts. Could cut lands for the Bushwhacks. We can basically pretend the Bushwhacks are Evolving Wilds. I think I'll cut 1 land. I don't want to cut lands like 1 for them, but we can do like 16 land double Bushwhack in this deck. I don't think I want the Overrun in here. I probably don't want the Inspiring Call. Really, there's like 3 +1/+1 counter cards. There's Zimone, Colony, and Scourge. I guess there's 1 Snakeskin Veil. So there's 4 cards in the whole deck that'll put a counter on board. That's just not very consistent. It does always give Indestructible, but for 3 mana, that's a lot. Honestly, think I'm cutting Refute. We're a 3-color deck, so double blue's a little difficult, and also we're a green deck, so we're mostly slamming creatures out each turn. The Ambush Wolves do help the Refute. Weird little green-blue synergy here, having a 3-mana 4/2 flash. So if we don't Refute, we just slap out the Wolf. That's kind of cute. I guess we've got the Elementalist Adept as well. So if we cut like an Erudite Wizard or something instead, maybe we do play enough flash creatures to make Refute reasonable. Scourge is mainly just funny with Zimone, so in the interest of keeping double Wolf Refute nonsense going, could maybe drop the Scourge. Again, as I said before, without +1/+1 counter synergies, this card is just inefficient. Like a 5-mana 4/4, 4-mana 3/3, 3-mana 2/2, these are just really bad rates in modern day Magic, so you really need consistent +1/+1 counters, and we've got, again, like the 4 cards that could maybe trigger it. All right, let's cut these 3 for sure, and then I still have 1 card to cut. Maybe we're overrating Time Stop. I guess it is mostly just worse Time Walk. It's more mana and it does less. There are certain situations where Time Stop can be a complete blowout, but they're rare. Like, if you're going to blow out your opponent by time stopping in response to them attacking with everybody, you would have blown them out with Fog, which costs 1 mana, and still isn't very good in draft. If they tap out to cast a spell, you can cast Time Stop. You've essentially countered that spell, and then your opponent also skips their combat step and everything, but the number of times that's relevant is probably not that often. Like, most of the time, if you're time stopping a spell that's on the stack, you're essentially still just casting Refute. Maybe it is actually just really overcosted. Time Stop is probably what we're supposed to cut, but I don't care. I'm going to cut some nonsense creature and play my big nonsense spell. Let's get rid of... This is kind of our only flyer. I was going to say Icewind Elemental is not very good, but it's also our only flyer. Fine, I'll cut Time Stop. But I'm happy to own one now. Do some stupid nonsense with that. And some constructed nonsense. So we've got 12 green cards, 10 blue, 3 red. Some of our green cards are 2 copies of Bushwhack, so green is super important, because we can use the green to get the other colors if we draw into a Bushwhack. So 5, 6, 7, 9 ways to get green. 5, 6, 7, 9 ways to get blue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ways to get red. I'm gonna add another green, cut another blue for a double Bushwhack here. But then we will lock that in, call it a deck here, hop into the gameplay, and see how it does. All right, here we are for game 1. This is pretty awkward on the play because we really need to hit 2 lands. But if we make it to 4 mana, this hand's really strong. Okay, Bushwhack helps a lot. Am I crazy for just taking the island and guaranteeing Epiphany? Probably, because I can Micromancer for Burst Lightning. That's kind of a big deal. Still playing the island here, though. So if we hit another, I can just get the blue sources already for Epiphany. My opponent can have their extra information. Playing against some Gruul. Generally just some aggro stuff. And they're living up to that. They're starting with a 2-mana 3/1 and beating down. There's a Mild-Mannered Librarian. That's a really good card. For 4 mana, they make it a 3/3 and draw a card. Luckily, not an elf. So Dwynen's Elite's just a 2-2, but a 2-2 is still good against the 3 mana 4-2. Ooh, naturally draw Burst Lightning, see? I knew we needed the mountain. If I Burst Lightning the Librarian, do they still draw the card? I'm actually not quite sure. Probably should have just flashed this in and traded last turn. I know if they like targeted it with, oh god, if they targeted it with a spell, that would be like put a +1/+1 counter on it, draw a card. And I Burst Lightning it, then they wouldn't draw the card because their spell would no longer have a legal target. Great. Well, I couldn't do anything about that. If I responded to the first trigger on stack, they still respond with Snakeskin Veil. There's no opportunity to shoot that with Burst Lightning before that next green mana is untapped. Brutal. Get wrecked by the rules of Magic the Gathering. Yeah, it's kind of just an auto loss. Mossborn Hydra is bonkers. Alright, well I can trade into a 3-3 here. They do draw the card though. Alright, rough draws, but really just Mossborn Hydra with the Snakeskin Veil protection is gonna win a lot of games. We are 0-1 heading into game 2. Oh, this mana continues to do what it wants here. That's gotta be a mulligan. There's 0 blue sources towards the Kaito. Not even a lot of action. 2-2 into a 4-2. Alright, we keep this one. Zimone, especially early off of a Llanowar Elves, is wild. So I can Llanowar Elves into Elite plus a tap land next turn. Maybe Zimone the turn after that, if we find an untapped mana, and we did. Cool. Gain our life. Hello, Cathar Commando. My Meteor Golem will cry in like 4 turns. The Heraldic Banner on red. Getting their second red mana for something important, probably. Always pre-combat the Zimone. That is a beginning of combat trigger. Juice them up. I don't mind a trade here. We can just juice up everybody else still. Prideful Parent. Tragic, the banner on red, so those don't get the +1/+0. It's my 5th mana, this is my 6th mana. I do still want to top deck another land, so I'll play this instead of the Evolving Wilds. If they double block, I'll probably double the counters, otherwise I'll just play the Ranger. Cool. It's going to be a raid trigger. Yep, Gorehorn Raider, 2 damage. Kill the Beastkin Ranger. Low Bushwhack. That could be the last land I need for Meteor Golem. Can also kill Gorehorn Raider instead. I don't really think I want to kill Gorehorn Raider. Okay, so tap land this turn and then untapped Bushwhack land next turn is the play. This is what? That's a 5/5. I guess it still trades into Llanowar Elves. Okay, I misplayed there, but they did too, so we're fine. I was like, right, that Gorehorn Raider's a 5/5, not a 4/4 right now. Doesn't really matter. I'll grab green off of Evolving Wilds, blue off of Bushwhack, because I've already got double red. More than I could ever need off the splash. Axe Guard Cavalry, welcome. This is kind of boring. I could Meteor Golem, but like, if I guarantee that this board remains the same by holding up a Refute, that's a much safer way to win this game. That just locks in the victory, so I should just do that. These things are just getting obnoxiously large. They have to chump both of them. Oh my god. Yeah, Zimone is wild. Your opponent does not have their removal for Zimone. It's the absolute steamroller. Okay, that's a little spooky. I'm gonna refute that. It's not lethal or anything, but close enough. I feel like I could just refute that and then counterattack lethal, and I certainly can. We are 1-1 heading into game 3. Alright, this is a little awkward, but I'm still going to keep it. We need a second blue for Kaito and Arcane Epiphany, but I do have a wolf and a removal spell till we can find that. And obviously top decking Island means the hand's just going to be great. Plenty of action if we get a wolf and a Kaito running around with Annihilation backup. Playing against a green deck, there's the mild-mannered Librarian again. There's an elite with no elves, but still better to curve here. And I've only got like 3 elves in the deck. 3 other elves. There's one more elite Llanowar Elves in the 3/3 Trampler. Horn Beetle. Alright, gotta make sure they don't have other power 4 creatures on board, or that's just gonna keep getting juicy. So we hold up the Annihilation in response to whatever they're doing. Next turn I can Bushwhack into an island and drop a Kaito. And then I also have the double blue for Epiphany ready. Probably gonna end up annihilating Hornbeetle, but it's better to wait and see if they play something better. Okay, that is not better than Hornbeetle. So I think I just annihilate that. I guess Librarian draws them a card if they level it up, so being able to annihilate that is also decent. Or I could just get sturdy over here. You know what? Sure, let's race. Let's go crazy. Can't be right to Bushwhack the Librarian, could it? Probably not. But this is really going to annoy my opponent, so I kind of like it. It's going to just shut off their Hornbeetle nonsense. But them setting up a Garruk's Uprising, it looks like their deck is very likely to be crafted to be casting a power 4 creature very soon. So whenever they cast that, we can annihilate that, and then the Hornbeetle doesn't get any counters, and then just keep rolling in for 6. Does not even have power 4, so they are really hurting right now. But that is a great annihilation target, still. Another Ambush Wolf? Alright. That means we're perfectly happy to trade the first one off. Gnarled Colony, get a 4/4 and draw a card. Yeah, Garruk's Uprising, putting in some work here. But Ambush Wolf attacks really well into that. Another green source is definitely awkward. Certainly feeling the pain from casting that bushwhack earlier. And they're not playing black, I should have just played the forest. I guess it's in my hand. If I hit an island now, I can discard it to Kaito to draw something else. Yeesh. These things are still kind of just even on board. I've got like 9 blue sources left in the deck. Because of bushwhacks. 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 8 left because I've used 1 bushwhack. Got a lot of live draws. Every green and red spell in the deck is a good draw, and every blue source is a good draw. Well, that's a nightmare. Now we need to hit a good draw fast. We obviously took a bit of a gamble with that bushwhack, and we are getting punished for it, but the odds of drawing the blue source this far away, pretty low. Kind of hit max punishment there, and it looks like we probably lose for it. We'll see. Because Kaito cannot bounce, so we have nothing to deal with this 8/6. Gets 3 attacks in and we're gone. Elfsworn Giant with the Uprising for another card draw. Alright, rough. It is what it is. The risk really didn't pay off. I don't think there's anything I can draw off of Epiphany for only 2 mana. That wouldn't matter. But let me just make sure real quick. I'm looking through the deck list. Yeah, no, there's not. Alright, 1 and 2 heading into game 4. Alright, here we are for game number 4. This is our best mana so far. I can always bushwhack towards the red source if we draw something that needs it. So let's just set up the double blue for Kaito. Playing against Rakdos. Firebrand Archer will get things started. It's just Kaito with 2 blockers up for him. Okay, Kaito with 1 blocker up for him. And now they can't just Burst Lightning Kaito. Unless they have double Burst Lightning, in which case that's still a good deal, because then Kaito 2 for 1s them. Kaito is 3 mana, make a 2/1, make your opponent discard a Burst Lightning. Oh wait, no, that's not true. It's 3 mana, make your opponent discard a Burst Lightning, and make them skip their combat. It's not quite a 2-for-1, but still good. Not quite as good as our opponent's hand, but good. It was insane. Double Burst Lightning in the opener. Seems good. Archer, Infestation Sage. Well, I told you the mana was good here. Did not look like it last game, but wow, this game it looks perfect. But not as perfect as their deck. Jesus, that is 1 and 3, and we're going to go back to never drafting green again. Quick little 1-3 draft today. Yep, that is nothing playable. Well, the one time we got to Zimone, it was absolutely explosive. Zimone easily took over the game, which does make me think she's still a great card you should take pretty highly, but all of the splashing around mana fixie stuff really didn't pan out super well for us. We got crushed by our mana game 2, and I don't know, I think we just hit a bad run of RNG as well, where our opponent had an insane curve that game, and We have a really consistent mana base, so missing out on the blue source still. Game 2 was also brutal, or loss number 2 was pretty brutal. Yeah, I mean, I don't think the deck's great just because I think green is quite weak generally. It's a little slow. It's not going to get any insane curve outs or anything. The ambush wolves being only 2 toughness for 3 mana is pretty bad. The elites without a bunch of elves is pretty bad. But I don't think it's as bad as it went, just 1-3ing insanely quickly. So, still bummed out about this one. There were definitely stronger things I could have done in the draft. If I just stuck to the way that I want to draft things and just my instincts, then these videos would be really, really not very interesting because I would never be green. I would just take Zimone and be like, okay, so we're going to be like blue-red splash Zimone or blue-white splash Zimone or something. Because my experiences with green have just consistently been so bad like this. So, yeah, I don't know. These 4 cards were really bad. Adept was also not great. I don't think we really got many opportunities to show off our other strong cards here. With this much fixing, I think like we're generally in a fine spot to be playing the red, but I don't know. It is what it is. Can't win them all. That is going to be 1 and 3 today. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it and you're interested in seeing some more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.